Hello, good afternoon. Welcome to Fuji Speedway in Japan. It is round 7 of the FIA World Endurance Championship. The Japanese race weekend, the penultimate in the season. And we may see our champions decided and crowned here at Fuji. Last year, Ford claimed the honours in the GTE Pro class. Harry Tincknell and Andy Priaulx were the winners of the race in the 67 car. Here you see their teammate Stefan Mucker getting ready to go out at the start of qualifying. We will have our GTE cars and our LMP cars as ever in different sessions. The 66 car was the pole sitter in the GTE class. So 2 race weekends after this, so not quite the penultimate, then anti-penultimate in Fuji, and forgotten there's Shanghai in 2 weeks' time before we go to Bahrain for the season finale later in October, a month or so from now. I'm Martin Haven, alongside me is Alan McNish. And the heat honcho is ready for qualifying, Alan, but the weather has been a little conspiratorial this weekend. It was beautiful before the cars went out on track during the early part of the week, and now not so.
Yeah, we've seen over the years that Fuji can sort of throw in a weather curveball, and normally when you arrive here you've got the beautiful Mount Fuji in the background, but when we arrived here at the circuit it was already overcast and raining. Right now it's not raining, but there's a lot of fog around, and so it's quite misty with a very low cloud cover, which is meaning the circuit, even though it hasn't rained outside for a few hours, is still very, very wet.
Very frizzy, apparently, down in the pit lane. Louise Beckett is down there. Louise, car's getting ready to head out in 10 minutes or so. What's the pit lane surface like? It looks as though it's actually starting to dry out.
There's a slight drizzle, but as you say, I can't see down to the end of turn 1 from here.
Yeah, and that is going to be potentially an issue. All that we need is for the drivers to have enough visibility and for the marshals' posts to be able to see each other, because that's how you pass flag signals along. The cameras are a little higher up than the drivers would be, naturally, and as a result we're seeing quite a lot more cloud than there is at ground level. Well, they're your winners last year. Toyota victorious, looking for a triumvirate to wins here. G-Drive, the 67 Ford, winning in the Pro class as well. But it's right at the end of free practice 3, about 2 hours ago, it was getting really touch and go in terms of visibility. What do you think as a driver?
Well, I think the driver is we want qualifying to happen, and if there isn't an issue with visibility from the flag marshal's post to each other, then I think we'll rock and roll. Now the safety car is running around just doing its final checks. The question for me is not necessarily that. The question is actually which tyre they're going out on. As Louise said, it's sort of feeling like there's a bit of drizzle in the air. There's no rain, but this cloud cover is so low that it's keeping that dampness onto the circuit. There's 3 sectors of the circuit. The first part is quite fast and flowing, mainly straight. Second sector, you've got the long 100R, and then into the hairpin left. This is turn 6 we're looking at now, so they come from around the 100R and then down to through that. And then the final sector, very tight and twisty. In FP3, they were looking at maybe going on to intermediates, but that last sector with all of those corners was where they were struggling to keep the tyre temperature and keep the actual grip and speed in the car. So it's decision. Do they go on the inter, or does someone have a brave one and try onto a slick if the dry line just starts?
Well, they have the choice because the race director has announced that the track is wet, and until it's officially, quote, a wet track, you're not allowed to not use slicks. So he's given teams carte blanche to go and use whatever they want. Of course, the same number of tyres per race weekend limit applies to wet weather tyres as to dry weather tyres, so you've still only got 10 sets for the entire weekend if you're a P1 driver.
Well, there you see the safety car coming out, and that's down in the 3rd sector, and the car moving around underneath Yannick Dalmas. Now, Yannick Dalmas has won Le Mans 4 times, so I think he knows a little bit about what's happening. Nice big oversteer there in the Audi R8 as he comes into a long left-hand, and this is a very, very tricky corner, because what you don't see there is it's a long uphill left and adverse camber. Again, as he's trying to put the power down, the circuit drops away from him, and he's got 4-wheel drive in this. Yeah. In the race cars, they don't have the same system, especially in the GTE and Lmp2. With the hybrid in the Lmp1, they effectively are boosting and driving through the front wheels as well with an effective 4-wheel drive. But there in the R8, he had Quattro, and it was still slipping and sliding under underneath him.
Yeah, Drift King, four-wheel drifting. New look to the Dempsey Proton car this weekend. The normal patchwork with blue is replaced by the pink and the pink ribbon. It's Breast Cancer Awareness Month, a subject that is very, very close to Patrick Dempsey's heart, so much so that he's had the car liveried especially for this race weekend, and he will be here as well this weekend. In fact, I think he's arrived this morning, so hopefully we'll catch up with him, find out more about it at dempseycentre.org or at pinkribbon.com. So let's catch up with Louise. Louise, you've been meandering around. What do people say about tyres? I mean, Yannick Dalmas is struggling with four-wheel drive. Nobody's going to be brave enough to go on slicks, are they?
No, it doesn't sound like it. From what they're saying, they don't actually have an inter, but it's a drying wet. So I think they're going to go out on that and see what the conditions are doing. I can't see it getting any better in this session, but who knows? So yeah, they're going to play it by ear a little bit as the session goes on.
It's funny, Louise, we were just looking at the safety car going around turn 6 there and heading off to the third sector again as you were talking, and you can see now, which is very different to 10 or 15 minutes ago, where there was actually like little bits of spray coming up off the tyres, as if, like you're saying, it is just got enough rain. Now the wipers are on that it is getting wetter as the time marches on.
Well, we're getting close to the start of the 20-minute session, which is in 5 minutes from now. In fact, 4 minutes from now. And Yannick Dalmas is still finding grip is at a premium.
I think he's enjoying himself, if I'm honest with you.
Do you know what? I'm not surprised.
Well, Dancing Marshals, that was something we saw last year, a fantastic little ditty of this gentleman as the safety car was going around, and it looks like he's back, very enthusiastic. That's one thing about here in Fuji. It's one thing about racing in Japan. I've been coming to this country for 27 years for motorsport. They're massively enthusiastic. They love their sport, and they love sports car racing, and Fuji is one of the historic venues in the world of long-distance racing.
Well, of all racing in Japan, I mean, it was their first big international circuit. You only need to think back to 1976, the famous year with James Hunt and Niki Lauda, the title decided here in conditions as bad as pretty much anybody has ever raced in Fuji, in favour of James Hunt, when Niki Lauda decided that having had one near-death experience in the season was probably enough for him and park the Ferrari Championship Challenge, be hanged. So, yeah, I mean, that sort of history really makes it one of the world's great racetracks. And the front straight here, 1.5 kilometres. You were saying earlier on that we're even in a prototype, even in those diesel Audis and with the hybrid cars, you're just sitting there going, is this thing ever ending?
Yeah, it's the longest straight outside of Le Mans in the championship, and 1.5 kilometres. It's only a 4.5 kilometre circuit, so your ratio of straight to corners is very, very high, leaning towards straight. So aero efficiency, it's not a maximum downforce circuit like most of the other tracks we go to. Shanghai, the next one, or Bahrain, you just stick everything on you can. Here, you need to have that balance, and with that 1.5 kilometre straight, the first part of it is actually still all uphill. It's only when we get in front of here in the commentary box, right in the middle of the circuit at the start line, where it starts to then flatten off and go down in towards the first corner, where you've got a huge big braking area. And I'm sure in qualifying we're going to see people locking up, sliding wide and missing the apex completely.
And this tight final section as well, slightly revised version of the circuit from that was in the running, well, into the beginning of this century. That's going to be really tricky as well. Everybody's saying that you can survive the first 2 sectors, but the third one is the one that really shows up any lack of grip from the tyre.
It's a mechanical grip section. The first section is straight line speed and acceleration. Same with the second section of circuit. Then from turn 10 until the start-finish line, it's all about mechanical grip and traction. Race director there, 30 seconds till green.
All right,
that's if you can see the green.
Light drizzle, which is honestly probably not rain. It's probably more that we are in a cloud, and that's just the moisture in the air, because we are in cloud at the moment.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pit exit is green for qualifying LMGT cars. LMGT cars qualifying has started. Track is wet. We do have some patches of fog on the track. Extreme caution is recommended.
Balanced against which, unfortunately, qualifying here might be even more important than at any other race so far this season. because of the potential for really poor weather conditions tomorrow. Reminder to keep your lights on.
I think as well, for this particular category, for the GTE Pro cars, in the championship battle, the World Championship battle is coming down to just singular points. So they get a point for pole position. And, you know, we've seen, you're talking about World Championships in Formula 1, we've seen that being won by half a point before in the past.
Yeah.
And I think this battle is going to be one of the best battles of the season, and it will go down to the wire in Bahrain.
Well, Ford's Andy Priaulx knows all about that. He won his first ever touring car title by half a point over Dirk Muller. Came into Bahrain 15 points adrift and almost out of the hunt. And then with one thing and another, ended up winning by half a point. A half points race was the decider. And we may end up with a half points race here as well. Who knows what the weather actually will do, but the forecast for tomorrow, the South Island of Japan basically has got an anticyclone to the west and an anticyclone to the east. We've got a mountain to the west of us that makes sure that the weather doesn't sweep past us. And mountains tend to scrape the rain out of clouds, so it could be okay, it could be anything between here and let's get Noah and his carpentry set out, because it could be very wet indeed.
Well, I'm from Scotland, so this is summer for me. And
exactly.
Back onto the circuit, then the 66. This is last year's pole position winning car. That is now the first one to cross the line, I think, out there. And this is going to be an important lap, because if they're on a fresh tyre, this first lap is a key one. The only thing is that they're venturing into the unknown. So in reality, as we see the car just sliding wide, and that's exactly what I was saying, the braking going into the, locked up the rear, ran a little bit wide. Not too much time lost there, but enough. And that's Muka in that car, Priaulx behind. I would prefer to be the Priaulx car,
exactly,
because then you can see what Muka ahead of you is doing, and you use him as a reference, a braking point. If you see him sliding off, you know, oh, I've got to be a bit more careful going into that corner than my teammate.
And Priaulx will have saved himself a little bit of an off-track excursion and probably found a couple of tenths just from that. And there's the experience. You know, he might have rushed to the front of the queue to get out in front of Stefan Muka, but you're right, in these conditions, let somebody else show you where the limit of adhesion is.
Talking about limit of adhesion, look to see how much oversteer they've got. These cars have got traction control, but going into the corner, the rear's going, then the front's correcting, and they're always working on the steering wheel. I'm sure that steering trace, as we've got one of the Porsches, they were very quick this morning and very quick in the wet. I think this is just trying to find its gap here. That's the 92 Christensen in that car in qualifying to start. Remember, you need two drivers, and so it's going to be the fastest average of those two drivers. And this is why, because
straight on. Wow.
In fact, that's into, you know, nearly down to Suzuka circuit. He went that far off. He's braked far, far too late there. A lot less grip. Big lock up on the left front tyre. No harm done, but very lucky because he was close to the gravel trap.
Well, Porsche were fastest and second fastest in free practice 1 and this morning's free practice 3, and only one Ford got in front of the Porsches at any time in track condition, in track action, and that was in yesterday's very much truncated free practice 2, and that was the 66 car. Fastest first sector was with the 71 Ferrari, now been beaten by the 51 Ferrari. Fastest second sector, Andy Priaulx 67 Ford. Fastest third sector for Stefan Muka, but Priaulx 67 Ford top of the timesheets at the moment. 71 Ferrari in second, 51 Ferrari in third. The 66 Ford being pushed out of fourth by Matt Griffin in the 61 AM class Spirit of Race Ferrari, and that is the Clearwater Racing car.
This is Olivier Pla, who's Muka's teammate, sitting there ready to go. Now, the next thing is, how many laps do you do? And do you just keep on going around? Because these conditions are changing, and so therefore you just try to get it. Now we can see there that Muka's dropped down because Machiavecchi's now, Priaulx's dropped down to second because Machiavecchi in the sister Porsche to the one we saw going off is now quickest on a 47.9, 2 tenths quicker than Priaulx. So certainly Priaulx will want to go again. Offline in the braking area, normally you're much more to the left, but it's quite greasy there because of the rubber that's on there, and water and rubber don't mix very well to give adhesion and grip. So running a little bit offline there as he's now coming up into the final sector.
Race control message on the timing screen. Rain expected to increase at 2:20. It is currently 2:55.
No, it's 2:05.
2:05, right. I'm reading the wrong screen. 14 minutes and 45 seconds left, not the time on the top. That's because I'm simple.
So there's the final corner, and then the long acceleration. You really don't want to get your left wheels in these conditions onto that curb, because then you just ruin the whole lap that you've just done. Also, the acceleration and speed to start your next lap.
Well, as we saw in Mexico, we are going to start LMP qualifying very hot on the heels of GTE qualifying. Harry Tincknell is getting ready to put his helmet on, and another off for the 92 Porsche.
And that was he was quickest in the first and second sector. Christensen, we saw in the previous lap going off and ruining his lap at the first corner. Now he's done it towards the end of the lap, and he's also holding up Machiovecchi, his teammate, who is currently sitting fastest overall, as Machiovecchi comes round the final corner.
Ferraris are in the pit lane. Louise Beckett, what do we know?
I'm just running down there now, but it looks like they're putting slicks on.
Wow, that's a brave one, Louise, to put slicks on. Lap times 47.5, and if we go back to pole position last year, they were looking at 37.5, 10 seconds different.
Well, big lock up for Andy Prio, down in third place now, behind Stefan Mucke and Fred Makovici. And the Gulf Racing car is second with Ben Barker at the wheel in the AM class. Matt Griffin's brought the AF Corsa run Spirit of Race Ferrari in. Let's hear from Louise.
Okay, so the Ferraris had wets on, and now they've gone to those drying wets, inters, however we want to describe them.
Okay, now that's again something that James Collado was talking about, that there is mileage perhaps in starting on a wet and then maybe running the slick if it or the intermediate if it feels strong enough to do so.
Yeah, I think it's certainly not a slick tyre at the moment. You see how difficult they are to try and get, and with the basically if you've got the wiper going, that suggests that it's got a bit too much humidity in the air. This humidity is not necessarily rain as we know it, it's more a case of just the low cloud. As we see off screen here that the second place man Mucke is now into the pits to switch over to Pla in the Ford, and followed by third place Prio to switch over to Harry Tincknell, the championship leaders.
Yeah, Ben Barker comes into the pit lane as well. Sam Bird and James Collado have both gone out in the Ferraris with 12 minutes and 20 seconds remaining. So the two Ferraris have gone out on an intermediate tyre, and that'll be a brand new one that hasn't been run yet. So for the two Ferrari drivers, Sam Bird and James Collado, now's the chance to try and push themselves further up the order. Collado was saying earlier that they've lost about a second and a half from yesterday in what seemed to be near identical conditions, and they were really struggling to try and work out why. Track temperature wasn't that much lower, it wasn't any wetter.
Did you see that oversteer?
Yeah.
That's just 77 Proton car coming out. Patrick Dempsey Racing coming out of the first corner, just two wheels onto the curb. Big oversteers. We saw that car spinning this morning coming out of there. And this is a team that's struggled a little bit right now with performances, the Astons. Now, this is not necessarily because of the car, but I think the Michelins are a little bit better in these conditions, as we see another new set of Michelin wets going on to the Fords. I think the Michelins are a bit quicker right now than the Dunlops around this track.
Louise down in the pit lane, what do you know?
Yeah, you can hear the number 91 Porsche just in its pit stop. They've taken off a set of wets and put on another set of wets.
Brand new set of wets, Louise, just using the edge, a hard edge of that gives a lot more grip on these 1 or 2 laps they need. But Machiovecchi has done a blinding lap on his fastest one. We followed him a little bit on his quickest one, but he's half a second up on the two Fords right now, who are neck and neck. And then 3/4 tenths quicker than Sorensen. Christensen, who I think's got the potential to beat Machiovecchi's time if he can put a lap together. He blew it with some quite big mistakes on his 2 laps, and so currently sitting in 5th.
61 Ferrari back out. Matt Griffin set the time initially, and now the second driver in the car is the car's owner, and so somewhat weighing at the wheel.
Okay, pick a car.
Yeah,
Which
pick a
ones
set
are
of
those?
lights, any set of lights.
And that's a lock-up, and that's why he's managed to keep it onto the circuit very close. You don't necessarily use the dry line round here. So at the first corner you do run a little bit wider, and you also just try and cut back a little bit to come straighter down the hill. This is one where you try to get to the apex, never do it. But there's a set of the intermediate tyres. coming off that Ferrari, and you see how wet they are.
Yeah, well, Louise was saying a Ferrari's in. I thought they'd just been in. They had. Obviously, that was James Collado coming in and saying, no, it's not working. And so they've tried one lap, and he's gone on. That was his out lap. He's come straight back in, gone, no, that's just not happening on the Inter. Give me the wet.
9 minutes to go, he had to make a decision straight away, because the problem was if he left it 1 or 2 laps, and you would need to duke a few laps to try to keep the temperature in the tyre in those Inters, but certainly it wasn't giving him the grip, especially in that final sector. And so it's a pit, trying to make the best out of it. Currently in the Pro class, the Ferraris are holding up the bottom of the Pro class in 7th and 8th.
Darren Turner there, ready to go out in the Aston Martin, taking over from Johnny Adam. But the Ferraris are at the moment struggling in the Pro class. There's the 95 car, Marco Sorensen. Michael Christensen at the wheel of the 92 Porsche, only in 5th position. Richard Leitz on his outlap in the 91 Porsche that's fastest. Olivier Plat on his outlap in the 66 Ford. Harry Tinknell's already out of the pits in the 67 Ford.
Just on that car's fastest first sector, which is effectively breaking into turn 1, out of turn 1, down towards turn 3. And then you've got the middle sector through the long, very, very quick 100R, which is dry, is nearly flat out in these GT cars in the wet. There's a lot of oversteering, a lot of lifting, and a lot of sort of teasing on the throttle to try and get it back down. It's the middle, but it's especially that final sector that I think is going to be the one. If you can hook it up and get the grip and get the power out of the final corner, then that is going to be the deciding factor whether you get onto the front row or potentially pole position.
By the way, if you're watching this, hashtag AstonRed10, go and search for that. You can win yourself a special edition Red Arrows Aston Martin, built by Aston Martin, and to be given away in a competition. You enter the competition, the money goes to the Royal Air Force Benevolent Fund in the UK, and at the end of it, one lucky donor of, I think it's a £5 donation, will end up with a brand new, custom-made, one-off Aston Martin, which is not a bad investment for a fiver.
Tinknell just popped himself up into 2nd place, goes quicker than Olivier Plat, or sorry, Muka, his teammate. There's Andy Prio, the guy that was out first in those tricky conditions. Yep, thumbs up to you, Andy.
There is the 66 car, looking lively underneath Olivier Plat.
That looked nice through there, very, very nice as he sort of threw the car up into the final corner.
Ferrari 71 back in. Sam Bird has tried a little longer, but didn't get even a one faster sector out of the Ferrari, so he'll come in for wets as well. In fact, the 71 Ferrari is behind the fastest of the AM class cars. Pedro Lamy handed that over to Paul Dall'Anna, the 98 Aston. Mike Headland is in the Gulf Porsche. Thomas Floor is in the 54 Ferrari, and that is the Spirit of Race silver car. And Matteo Cairoli in the 77 Dempsey Proton Porsche that was driven first by Christian Reed. So this is kind of a late call by Sam Bird. Taking the wets off. Okay, so if the wets are coming off the Ferrari, Louise, what's going on?
Another set of wets.
Another set of wets, okay. Well, maybe they were
struggling. Sorry to interrupt you there. They're struggling for performance here, Ferrari. They were pretty quick yesterday in the wetter conditions, but right now Collado is down in 7th, and his teammate is even behind the Aston Martin Bird. But the thing is, their fastest lap time is 1.2 seconds, 1.3 seconds slower than the quickest car in the category. They're nowhere. They're just throwing tyres at it to see if they can get something out of it right now.
Harry Tinknell has just put the 67 Ford at the top of the timing pile, ahead of the 91 Porsche and the 66 Ford. Now, don't forget, Richard Leitz out in the 91 car, but the first lap set by that car is still faster than any lap set by the Ford, but it's the average of the fastest laps set by each of the drivers that decides their grid position. So it's not just one stellar lap.
But I think Leitz is going to stick it onto pole position as we're watching the GTM car, the 77 of Cairoli that's in the car at the moment, because he's fastest in Sector 1 and Sector 2. As he's not his fastest of his laps in Sector 1 and Sector 2. And if he can hook up the final sector, that car's got the capability.
Seems to me that visibility is becoming even more restricted. We're going to hurry up into LMP qualifying to try and avoid the rain. However, Rain might actually help clear things out. There's far less car visible than there used to be. Richard Leeds pops to the top of the timing screen.
Yeah, but he's popped to the top of the timing screen, as we said, but it's half a second.
Half a second clear.
It's a huge gap, but then again, that was the gap, if we're honest about it, in the first time when they ran with the other driver. So it's just a repeat of it, and showing that the Porsche, even though they've shoved the engine much further forward than this, and it's a mid-engine car, they've still got very good performance in these conditions.
Yeah. So the 91 car is going well. The 92 car really starting to, or continuing to struggle. Kevin Estre at the wheel now, but they're only in 5th position. Yeah,
the problem is that they've on the average lap time, because of all the mistakes in the first run, then they're struggling there. They were 6/7 quickest, if I remember, at that point, and so it'll be difficult for them to come back from it.
91 has been ahead of 92 in the first and third free practice sessions. Olivier Plat on a much quicker lap for this car as well, and we saw it dancing around underneath him. He's really now, this is when a car's up on its toes, isn't it? He's not being dictated by the grip, he's dictating what the car's doing.
The problem is he got 2 wheels on the curb there as he came through the overhill adverse right-hander, and at that point you just can't get the power down. And it looks good for cameras, and to be honest, in the car it feels good, but then when you sit there wheel spinning, then you just see the lap time drop away from you. But he is pretty quick on this lap, Olivier Plat.
Matteo Cairoli puts the Dempsey Proton Porsche on pole at the moment. Ford's on wets, and I think everybody is now heading back towards a wet from an intermediate thinking, and for LMP I don't think an intermediate is going to be a goer at all. I think it's going to be wet weather tyres, because rain is on its way, we hear. Right, OK, down in the pit lane, more news from Ford, Louise Beckett. Harry Tincknell's in.
Harry Tincknell has just come in, got out of the car, and Andy Priaulx in these last minutes is getting back in on a set of wets that they haven't changed from Harry.
That's interesting. That's because when Tincknell went out, he had a very clean run of 47.8 lap time, which was the best, but it was 3/10 quicker than his teammates. So from the average point of view, there is more to gain by Priaulx running out than what there is by Tincknell running again.
Slowest car in Pro is the 71 Ferrari. Sam Bird, best first sector of this car, best second sector of anybody, and he bumps it up to 4th on the grid.
Yeah, 2 minutes to go. Sam Bird up to 4th. However, on an average, still 7/10 off the pace of the leading Porsche, the 91.
Andy Priaulx has got 1 lap. It's 2 minutes on the clock. He might get a second.
No, it
might be tough. It's 1:47 at 1:48 at top speed, so it's 2 minutes to get round. So he will just beat the flag. Just beat the flag. And 86 car Mike Headland. Francesco Castellacci, by the way, has just left the pits in the 54 Ferrari. That's the Spirit of Race car. I think Thomas Floor did the first laps in. Mike Headland in the Gulf Porsche, behind Paul Dalla in the Aston Martin. But it's the 61 Ferrari that's now gone to the top of the AM class, ahead of Matteo Cairoli. So that's a fantastic lap from Wenzel Mock to beat an average. Matteo Cairoli, a Porsche Junior factory driver, and Mock has beaten him on the average. Paul Dalla has reversed the 98 Aston off. Obviously, grip is still very much at a premium here. Oh, and there's the Gulf Porsche of Mike Headland.
That's...
See how wet the greasy outfield is. That's from 1 down to 2. And that's bad news for the Aston.
It's on the curb and just got onto the power. That moment, you can't turn the steering wheel. You've effectively got to just drive straight along the curb with a little bit of throttle on, not too much, certainly not increasing the throttle, and get off the curb and get onto equal traction, left and right-hand side tyres. Priaulx talking, well, you can see it there, very visual, oversteer. Yep, I think that's the order of the day.
That was Tincknell, he's the tall one. You should know that. Priaulx's in the car.
Priaulx's teammate Tincknell.
Yeah, you left the word. You left the word.
I think we're now looking at it 16 seconds. The only person that really can try and take this away from Leeds, who's currently on pole position, is Prio second.
Yeah.
And he's back out there to try to see the gap. One of the reasons is because in the World Championship, it's between these two cars.
Yeah.
There is only a 6-point gap at this moment in time.
Louise,
and it could reduce to 5.
Were I hedging my bets, I'd send you to Porsche. So I'm going to send you to Porsche, and then I can make you run all the way to Ford after the championship. Right, okay. Yeah. Checkered flag is out, and where is Andy Prio? He's in sector 1, and it's not even green. That's not even a personal best.
It's within a few hundreds of personal best. It's 23.0 in that sector. This is the car we're talking about as he now runs down to sector 2, down in towards a hairpin at turn 10. Heavy braking into this corner.
How slow is that Ferrari in front? Let's hope he's not dawdling on the way in.
It's still not bad. It's actually within the same sort of 10th as his teammate Tingle, so this will improve their overall average, improve his lap time if he can manage. Just runs a bit wide there. I think it's starting to slip away from him.
Needs to find nearly 4 tenths. Louise is on her way down to the Porsche garage, so we may well be speaking to them. Richard Leitz in the 91 car, and you saw Fred Makovici there with the beard. Across the line, he's not going to be close enough, is he, Andy Prio? He's got to give it a go. Well, they don't want to be celebrating prematurely, boys.
No, I think
it doesn't look like a good lap. Well, not good enough anyway. But Andy is very much a man, never leave a point going begging. He doesn't do it. It is pole position for the 91 Porsche duo. So this is only the second time in 4 sessions they've been in front of the 92 car. 92 car will start in 5th place, but it is pole position in the AM class for Clearwater Racing, Matt Griffin and Weng Sung Bok. But let's join Louise down at Porsche.
That's a nice big smile.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Great result.
Yeah, great result from the team, from Richie also. He did a really, really great lap. Really happy. I mean, for sure, since several years, we struggled a little bit in qualify. Already 92 did a great qualify in Nürburgring, and we wanted to do it also here. For me, it's special because Japan is like my second home place, and I really love to be here. I'm really happy to be that.
And the Porsche's coming into their own in these conditions?
I mean, it's always tricky because the conditions change so much. It's really important to have the right tire at the right time. Now we'll see how is it tomorrow, but for sure today we had a really good car and really cool performance.
And an important 1 point in the championship.
Definitely, all the points will score, especially we'll see what happened tomorrow. And we needed to be on the front because also with the spray it's always really difficult and it's more safe to start from the front.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Well, congratulations to Fred and to Richard Leitz, his teammate, and a good qualifying run. You know, when the weather gets wet, habitually a 911 has the traction advantage, and as you said, moving the engine more amidships doesn't seem to have reduced that at all.
Yeah, I think the thing we've seen over the last 2 days, though, is as we see the AM pole position winners.
Yeah.
And interestingly, Ferrari were able to pull it at the back, beat Porsche and beat Aston Martin in the AM, but in the actual pros, they were basically nowhere until the final lap of Sambert, who popped it into 4th.
Yeah, it was a very good run from that Clearwater Racing car. Matt Griffin put them on top with his run, and then Weng Sung Mok, the car's owner, Malaysian driver, went out and put them back up to the top of the pile. And in these conditions, very limited visibility, really limited grip. That's an exceptional performance. We are due to go now straight headlong into LMP1 and LMP2 qualifying in just 1 minute from now. Cars may head out into the fast lane, and this is a hurry-up offense, but teams were aware that this might well happen, and it worked in Mexico. They are ready to do it again. Now 31, the first car into the pit lane, the Rebellion, Louise Beckett, on what tyre?
Looked like a set of Inters to me, and that's the same for the 28 just going out now.
I think one thing that'll be very interesting is what the LMP1 hybrids, because they've got effectively a slick tyre with Michelin that acts as an intermediate, so it's got no grooves or cuts on it, but it's got a white little extra band on the sidewall. Race director, 30 seconds, and there's the Toyota. Just come round a little bit. That's not the that is actually looking a bit more like a wet tyre than an inter right now in that car.
Well, the yellow sidewalls on the prototype tyres tell us that's a wet weather tyre, right?
Sorry, on the Michelin, it's got an extra white band on it for the LMP1, and that it differentiates between the slick inter and an actual slick tyre.
Yeah. So the white one is the slick immediate, and as you can clearly see, visibility is getting... So the visibility has dropped, and Louise, the rain is getting worse as well. Let's hear from Toyota.
We expect some rain at the start of the session, so I think that the safest would be to go wet cap.
Well, it is always the thing, isn't it? Don't be sitting eating an ice cream like Kimi Raikkonen, be out on track trying to set a lap.
Well, everybody's looking at this radar, and the dark blue coming means rain, and then the green as well. And so that's the rain coming towards the circuit. It's coming from the final section of the lap, not the first section. Here we're going through the long 100R, flat out in the dry, in these wet, greasy conditions. We saw it yesterday, big lift. Vitaly Petrov in the LMP2 car lost it in the middle of it, banked it into the barrier. But right now, you need to be out straight away, because if that rain comes, the circuit's going to get wet and it's going to get slower. And qualifying the position, especially for Toyota, they own this track, it's their home turf. They want to be on the front row.
In the number 7 car, Jose Maria Lopez has never raced at this track before. Both his teammates have. He's raced in Japan in World Touring Cars, but that was at Suzuka, so he'd be all right there. But he doesn't know this track. In fact, he didn't race in AIDA. He raced only in Suzuka, I think. So, but you've got to be out there, Alan, because the rain is going to get heavier and heavier and heavier.
And the rain is coming. If you look straight ahead now, normally you see Mount Fuji, but today you can't, and that's where the rain is coming from, that particular direction. So now looking down the long start-finish straight, this is a long, long uphill stretch. So you boost out of the final corner, boost some hybrid energy. Then your energy resets now as you go over the start-finish line. Then you hit the button again and boost a second acceleration. So you've sort of got an acceleration, a slowdown, then a second acceleration in the middle of the straight before hitting the brakes for turn 1.
First flying lap, this is Nick Tandy in the number 1 Porsche, Earl Bamber in number 2 right behind him. Let's hear from the number 1 Porsche team.
Just maintain a bit of a gap to car in front. On new wet, get a banker lap in, and we'll come in.
Well, that's not a banker lap from Nick Tandy. A big, big oversteer into 100R, went wide, then a big oversteer as well as he came out of the corner, and still going for it. He's still got to keep in it, because this could be the best lap for the conditions, not for your personal driving, but for the conditions. So you keep on it, but right behind, the Toyota's got the perfect situation, like we saw with Pla leading in GTE Pro on the first lap, made a mistake. Then the second car, the Toyota behind, can actually sit there and just decide where that braking point is, how much you can push.
Gone? Oh, there he is. We were looking at the other car in front, which is the number 2 Porsche. So there is the number 1 car. Number 7 is the Toyota behind, and that's Jose Maria Lopez. The onboard camera showing you Nick Tandy working at the wheel. Earl Bamber in the number 2, just a few metres up the road, but far enough in front that Tandy can probably only just see his flashing lights. And it is there's more rain this part of the lap than there was a lap ago.
That's not actually rain, to be honest with you. That's just the speed and the dampness that's already near, but it's a spray coming off the car ahead that is significantly more than it was 10 minutes ago. And so that dampness is sort of sitting there, the cloud cover's dropping down.
Last lap, fastest first sector was Lopez, fastest second was Earl Bamber, fastest third sector was Nick Tandy, who's put in the fastest lap so far, despite that
huge
fighting through 100R,
Yeah, but right now it's who makes the least mistakes in these situations, not who gets the perfect lap, who makes the least errors and gets the best out of it, which is purely throwing it into the corner, getting on the throttle and trying to sort it out as you're going along. As now we're on board here through 100R, braking hard into turn 6, left-hander, always understeers, never get the feeling you've got the front grip, and then trying to get onto the power. You need to be clean and straight out of here, because it's flat. This is the second longest straight on the circuit, down in towards turn 10.
You saw how quickly Lopez was pulling gears there, second straight up to 5th, with just 3 as fast as he could pull through them to try and limit the wheel spin. Because with all that hybrid boost, you've got an awful lot of horsepower trying to scrabble at the tyres.
Yeah, right now their lap times, though, are very similar to what they did this morning.
Fastest car in LMP2, the number 31 car, Bruno Senna for Rebellion. Thomas Laurent in the 38 car for Jackie Chan DC Racing is second. 36, that's the all-blue Signatec Alpine. That's third quickest ahead of Pierre Thirier in the red and white number 26 car. Matt Rao ahead of Roberto Gonzalez, the faster of the two Manners that are 9th and 10th. Then Francois Paredo, Alex Brundle 37 down towards the bottom of the time screens, only just ahead of 13, which is Nelson Piquet Jr. LMP1 cars are all in. Nick Tandy and Earl Bamber are both in the pit lane, and Lopez joined at Toyota by Nakajima. The P2 cars continuing for another lap. And Senna now goes to the top of the timing screen, ahead of Piquet, who's gone from last to first and then bumped down to second. Bamber out and Hartley in. Big Bill Neil Jarni gets in. No. Yeah. So who's getting in the other car? Is it Tandy or it's Andre Lotto? Okay, so it is Brendon Hartley, the newly announced Toro Rosso driver, who will go and race in his first Formula One Grand Prix in Austin, Texas.
Super news for Brendon.
Isn't it, though?
He's basically done and dusted his stuff here, and he's got his opportunity with Red Bull, he was a Red Bull junior in the early formulas, and it didn't quite happen for him, but now got his chance. So I'll certainly be one that will be tuning in and cheering him on to see
no question.
How Brendon gets on. Good
rear wing change for Earl Bamber in the number 2 Porsche. They took the rear end off and wandered off into the garage. Well, not wandered, shot off into the garage with it. So clearly a new rear end is coming out with presumably more wing.
Well, depends on the balance they've got. Because you know, you take the whole back end off and put another one on, you don't adjust the wing angle, and so they'll have a different downforce level for that, and so you'll be looking to change it. However, that then meant that Lotterer was out, and Andre would be a guy, knowing the fact this circuit better than I think anybody on the grid right now. Maybe Nakajima's the only other person that knows it as well, because Andre Lotterer spent so much of his career out in Japan racing in the various categories, but also still continues to live most of the time out here and races in Super Formula.
A little battle continuing between the Rebellion drivers, who are still out, still their first drivers out on track. Piquet now goes fastest, newly announced as a Jaguar driver in Formula E. So now with his third different Formula E team in 4 seasons.
Yeah, it's TDS racing. That's certainly a car that we've seen historically fighting for pole position, but in this conditions round here, I think it's going to be a struggle for those guys, because they've got a car that's very, very stiff, and if they can get the performance out of it, then they'll do very well. But right now, overall, they're 7th in category in LMP2, 12th overall, with Perodo, with the car we're on board with now.
Yeah, and Pierre Thirier in the other car that's run by the same crew, which has got the same bouncing effect down into the first corner, the number 26 car. The G-Drive car, that is struggling down in 6th place as well. It does look as though Rebellion have got a very strong lineup. Senna finally in the pits. Number 1 car with Nick Tandy still at the wheel. Yeah, no. We saw
a change of driver there.
We saw
so his driver ID,
this
is Andre Lotterer, his driver ID. On our timing screens here, in a separate screen monitor, it's still got Nick Tandy at the wheel of this car, but we know Andre's in the car. And now coming through turn 3 into the long turn 4. This is where we saw Tandy get the big oversteer. Now the wiper is going. Now that rain is coming down.
Yeah.
As Andre brakes hard and jumps into the left-hander at 6. Now, interesting, they've gone out on the full wets. Look at the spray coming off the back of the car. Now, that's increased quite a lot. Even in the last 5 minutes, I would have said it's increased a lot there.
Yeah, definitely. Just shot by the number 7 Toyota, which is going very slowly. Really quite worryingly slowly in this. Andre Lotterer, fastest second sector of all. Is all right with the number 7 car? This is Kamui Kobayashi. I mean, he can't be slowing down to look for a gap in traffic. He had a gap in traffic.
Yeah, he's maybe dropping back because there is a gaggle of 3 cars that Lotterer's just coming up to and out of the final corner, but Lotterer's finishing his lap.
Yeah.
And Kobayashi doesn't want to start the lap and maybe try and grab them in this final sector later on, which will ruin everything that he's done. But now he's accelerated out of the final corner. In fact, those cars, I think most of them have come into the pits.
Yeah, so I think that was possibly a wasted lap by Kobayashi, because if he'd been going as quick as Lotterer was, he would have passed them quite happily. Not sure whether he's just had a little moment of worry. He doesn't come into the pit lane for a different set of tyres, so you've got to assume that they're on a full wet. Well, that's Go ahead, Louise, what do you know?
The number 13 Rebellion's just come in. Nelson PK has got out. I think it was, I don't know who was getting in, I'm afraid to say, but they've stayed on the same set of inters.
Yes, Nelson Piquet Jr. handing over to David Heinemeier Hansen in the 13 car and staying on the same set of inters because they've only got a limited number of intermediate tyres or wet tyres they can use in tomorrow's race, which is unlikely to be dry. So,
well, let's say the regulations are open, but physically the tyre manufacturers do have a limitation on the number of tyres they can physically bring to the circuit. So then that is spread out between all of the teams. So there is a not necessarily a regulated limitation, but there is a sort of natural real-world limitation. And that would be one of the reasons to do that. We know that Jota, for example, this car, and they split their strategies. Louise was telling us earlier on the talk back there, they split their strategies where one car went out in full wets, one in inters, and then at the driver change, they switched over and one went out in inters and full wets. But yesterday they've run on the same tyre, all FP1, all FP2, to try to save fresh sets of wets for tomorrow.
Fastest first sector of all for Sebastian Buemi in the 8 Toyota, catches the 37 car, 38 car, and that's Ho Pin Tung in front of him. And
that's an angry Sebastian Buemi behind him.
Yeah.
Because that's the moment, because it's the final corner, he's frustrated because everything he's done in sector 1, sector 2, boom, and then it's gone just right at the end of the lap. There's nothing you can do about it. You've just got to try and make your way through it, not to let it affect your next lap. That's the key point now. Forget it, it's done, it's history, can't change it. Take a deep breath, get your braking point for turn 1, do it all again.
So number 8 car currently lying third ahead of the number 7 Toyota. It's Porsche number 2 ahead of Porsche number 1 in the LMP1 class, and Rebellion ruling in LMP2, 13 ahead of 31. Now they've just been both bumped down by 37 and 38, so the 2 Jackie Chan DC racing cars have moved ahead of the 31 Rebellion car, and that was Nelson Piquet who started 13. So 37 Alex Brundle, 38 Ho Pin Tung have gone second and third for Jackie Chan DC Racing.
It's a bit greasy there again. We saw coming through 100R, just running a little bit wide. And the problem is you have to straighten the steering wheel to stop the oversteer, to stop spinning. But at one point, the road just keeps on turning. And there's nothing much you can do about it if you're in that position. Just got to try and sort of sort it out the best you can and know that you've lost a little bit of lap time.
James Rossiter in the number 26 G-Drive car in 6th place in LMP2. You're looking at 36, that's Nico Lapierre in 5th in LMP2. Rossiter, the only significant name change in the lineup this weekend. Good to see him back racing in Japan. He spent a fair amount of time in his career racing single-seaters in Japan as well. Bit of a stagger there from Jean-Eric Verne in the 24 Manor car. That's his outlap, so he was trying to stay out of the way.
I didn't do a very good job of it, to be honest.
And at the bottom of the timing screen, Vitaly Petrov on his outlap in the number 25 Orica. Off goes 13, and that is David Heinemeier Hansen running out a little wide. Fastest second sector of all for Brendon Hartley on his lap. The number 2 Porsche still fastest by an average of 71 thousandths over the 2 cars from the number 1 Porsche. Kobayashi in the pit lane in the 7 Toyota, and Alex Brundle and Ho Pin Tung go 1-2 for Jackie Chan DC Racing as they come into the pit lane. And a tyre change.
And Louise, you said, what's the tyre are they going on to down there, both those cars?
They're really confusing me here. Jackie Chan Racing. So 38 was on wets, back on wets, going out. 37 on that last lap was inters, and now they've gone back onto wets.
Yeah,
Okay.
not surprising going back onto the wet, because now the spray, just looking out the comms box window, the spray is quite intense there.
And yeah, Alex Brundle on that last lap went to the top of the timing screen on an inter and has now gone on to wet, so...
Yeah, but if it was already at that crossover point in terms of lap time, and for these cars it's about a 1:44, which is exactly the average lap time they've done so far, is the crossover point between the inter and the wet, so it's going the wrong direction. We know the rain's coming, we've seen it on the weather forecast, we see the spray that's now coming up from the back of the car, and so therefore the correct thing with 5 minutes to do, you're already quickest, you know the conditions are going to get worse, don't risk it.
So Porsche number 1 is already in the pits, second fastest. Porsche number 2 we've just seen come in. Does that suggest, A, they're happy with where they are, 3/10 ahead of Toyota, or they're going back onto wet weather tyres for one more shot at it?
I think they'd look at wet weathers, but...
So Louise down in the pit lane, they do look like they're going back out then?
They absolutely are. They've just changed tyres, I'm assuming to wets. I'm not close enough to see, but the number 1 is definitely going back out.
Yeah, pushing again. They're too close, to be honest. Toyota too close to be relaxed about this.
Driver change.
Yeah, because...
Hartley out and back in the number 2 car.
Well, they're only 0.07 of a second ahead of this car, the number 1 car of Rossiter, who's just gone back out again. So it's tiny little difference there. And then 3 times behind is Buemi. We've already seen Buemi having a fantastic first one, then having traffic to ruin his lap.
Jean-Eric Verne in the pits as well in the manner we just saw, and a whole host of LMP2 cars are coming in. Sebastian Buemi, second sector faster than any done by this number 8 Toyota so far.
Now, this could be the reason why. This is a final sector for Buemi. He's now coming up into the long-term 15. This is where he got the traffic before, the LMP2 car. He now can get to the apex, and he's got a clean run. That car ahead of him won't block him, I don't think, because this is a final corner now. Gets in towards the apex and then on to the power. All the boost and everything he's got as he now accelerates out over the start-finish line.
There's only 3 LMP2 cars on track, and he caught one there almost in the final corner. That was the 26... it's not the 26 Senior Tech car, I thought it was. Oh, but across the line he comes. And it's a better lap? It's not actually a better lap. It was only the second sector that was better. That's not a better lap.
It was a better lap for him, but when he crossed the line, admittedly the lap is finished, then there was a huge drop-off of speed there. Yeah.
He's used all his hybrid boost to get to the line.
Yeah, but honestly, you use the hybrid boost in the first 150 metres out the previous corner.
Elbamber Andre Lotter on outlaps with 2.5 minutes to go. Let's see if Porsche can tell us what they're up to.
Radio from Andre Lotterer there, which doesn't seem to work. He's a silent character, Andre, in the car. Silent killer sometimes in that respect. 35.0, he's the fastest man that's done the lap so far, but he's not quick enough to get that pole position by the 700s over Bamber, who's been switched over again. So this is his Bamber's second time in the car.
Yeah, he's gone back out on the set of wets that Brendon Hartley has just done his laps on, so they're not using up another set of tyres, they're just giving the number 2 team another shot at it. There's Brendon Hartley. Timo Bernhardt in the cap alongside him.
Andre's.
Through they go. Oh, and you can see the difference, the mid-corner speed of the LMP2 car, fairly close to that of a P1 who's trying to tiptoe around on the inside, because they're both limited by traction at that speed.
But also once the hybrid boost is gone, then the actual top speed of the P2 car is quicker than an LMP1. But this lap's gone. Andre, with 1 minute and 28 seconds, will get past the start-finish line. So he's got one other lap. So in the last sector, he'll be preparing, make sure he's got maximum boost to be able to do this final lap. If he feels he's got it in the tyre. There it is.
2 red lights on the side, so still second in the LMP1 class. Pole in LMP2 at the moment with the number 13 Orica. David Heinemeier Hansen continues to circulate. David Cheng second in the 37 Jackie Chan DC Racing car. Thomas Laurent third in the 38 car. And a change there. Laurent goes second. Julien Canal up to third. Ahead of Andre Negrão up to 4th. It's jumping all over the place in LMP2. David Cheng suddenly went down from 2nd to 10th, or to 8th, beg your pardon, 6th in class. I'm not quite sure what happened there.
I think with everybody else doing the second lap and getting up there, then you know, the two Jota cars were 1-2 at one point, and now they're 2-7.
And Verne and Petrov both with better first sectors than any done by either of the Manor cars so far. Looking at Jev in 24, the one with the big yellow top windscreen top.
See the target lap time for the various cars to get that pole position. For the 24, then it's a 41.2.
Petrov,
which I think is going to be a bit of a big ask.
Petrov in the second sector in 25, half a second quicker than Jean-Eric Verne.
He does need to go 3 seconds quicker than anybody to get the pole position, though. So I don't think realistically we're going to see this as the checkered flag has come out, so you'll see that and not be able to do another lap after that.
Kobayashi in the pits for Toyota. Buemi has taken the flag as well, so has Thomas Laurent, so has Andre Negrão, so has Vitaly Petrov. And that lap, not enough to move him much up the order ahead of the 28 TDS racing car. But it does look as though Earl Bamber and Brendon Hartley have pole position. Brendon Hartley not having a bad year this year, is he? Do we think, you know, in general racing terms?
No, sometimes everything just flows for you, and it's definitely flowing for him. I think the man to his left-hand side, or right as we're looking to it, being Timo Bernhard, I think is a big factor in Hartley sort of growing into the driver that he is today. With him and Mark Webber, then he had the right surroundings. Here's Nelson Piquet with Rebellion, who are pole position, with Mr. Heimer Hansen in LMP2. Very strong run by those guys, and a big gap in reality, and in fact, 0.7 of a second.
They've gone 1-2, 13 and 31. So Rebellion 1-2 and Porsche 1-2 in LMP1. So Rebellion really had the car set up for the conditions, and the drivers made great use of it. So Nelson Piquet, David Heinemeier Hansen, who is the gentleman driver in the car, the AM driver, i.e. he's a businessman who can afford to go racing rather than a racing driver whose career it is and whose only job it is. So that's a very good effort indeed by Rebellion. Outclass their rivals.
They should be happy because they were actually very competitive all the way through these difficult conditions. And they seem to have made the right choices and tyres at the right time. Number 2 car, the pole position, Earl Bamber. In the car at the moment, finishing off.
So there are your LMP2 pole sitters. Matthias Besch will join the trio join the duo who did the running here in qualifying in the car during the race.
Well done, man.
It's 1 point towards the championship for those guys as well.
1 second.
Same for Hartley, Bamber and Bernhard, who are 1 point closer.
Earl Bamber steps out of the car. He had 2 runs at it. Earl Bamber did the first run and the third, and Brendon Hartley in the middle. Pole position for them. The gap in the end, 71 thousandths. Nothing at all between them and the number 1 car, but they do earn themselves an extra point, as you say, 1 point closer to that championship title.
And now a huge 52 points ahead of this man, Sebastian Buemi in the Toyota, that finished up in 3rd place. He went a little bit quicker, and it was 0.2 of a second difference between Bamber and these guys here and Buemi, but 2 seconds doesn't mean any difference. If you're not in pole, you're not in pole when it comes to the point.
Well, you'd feel a lot more hangdog if you were 2 seconds off in qualifying than if you're 2/10s.
Talking about the point, though. For the point, it's exactly the same.
Well, 71 thousandths has cost the number 1 Porsche a point there, but the number 2 car, the championship leaders, pull the fat out of the fire, take pole position in LMP1. LMP2 pole for the number 13 Orica. GTE pole went to the 91 Porsche in the Pro class, and in the AM class, Ferrari, the 61 Clearwater Racing Ferrari. Let's hear from our pole sitters, Brendon Hartley and Earl Bamber, with Louise Beckett.
Well, the number 1 was pushing and chucking everything up that to try and take that pole from you, but they couldn't. You did it, P1.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a great competition between both car crews and also Toyota this weekend. Everyone's been super close in the wet, just a couple tenths. So, you know, we always know that it's a great fight. We want to throw everything that we have at each other. And, you know, in the first run, Nick got me a little bit. BH did a great job to get Andre. tried another time there at the end, but didn't quite have the conditions. We ran a used tyre, so didn't really work, but great result, front row lockout for the team. So I couldn't ask for anything better going into tomorrow, and it's just such a pleasure. Another point in the bag as well, so we're marching forward.
So you went out a second time because you'd seen them go out on new tyres?
100%. So we saw them react and we reacted. We didn't change the tyres. We tried to go again, but we just mixed a little bit of grip. But you know, that's the competition, and you know, it's so close between the two car crews, and we both want to be on pole. So it's nice to get one. My first pole in the WEC as driving. We've been on pole a few times with the other two doing the quali, so it's really nice.
So it's nice fighting competition between the two.
Yeah, and I think hopefully we get a race tomorrow as well. You know, be actually really nice if we're racing right now because the track conditions are great. You know, I think it would be a nice fight. So fingers crossed. Pray to the rain gods, and we get a great race tomorrow as well, because I think Toyota's right in the fight, and we're going to have to be 110% the whole way to make it work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I've got to agree with that. You know, if we get some half-decent weather, we could be in for a really epic battle as well. Now, what did Toyota think about it? Let's hear what Sebastian Buemi had to say.
The Porsche, the first time lap was the lap. The tires had the juice. I needed to be clear. I've left as much space as I could. I had the Lmp2 behind, and I got struck by him. The tires had so much more grip. So much more grip.
That's a difficult point for him when he had the grip at the beginning and he had that traffic, then that was the lap. And then the frustrating thing from the driver's point of view, you know you've got a clean lap, but you just don't have that peak performance of the tyre, the edge of the grip. And we heard El Bamber saying when he went back out on the used tyre, it was okay, but it wasn't quite there. Yep. Frustration for Toyota, home turf, they definitely wanted pole position. It was important for two things. One, home ground to say to Toyota-san and to all their fans that have been big supporters of them for a long time, you know, we're here and we're fighting, but at the same time as well for the championship.
Absolutely right, to try and rein in the runaway #2 Porsche team, but it is the #2 team that have pole position. Sunday's 6 hours may be run in very wet conditions. Race is due to get underway at 11 AM local time. 5 PM will be the finish no matter what else happens. The 6 hours of Fuji 2017 could well be a barnstormer between Porsche and Toyota. LMP2, GTE, both look very tight as well. Let's hope the weather allows us to play.
Well, I've just managed to run all the way from Porsche down here to Rebellion. That was superb from both of you. First of all, Nelson.
Yeah, no, the car was great. After practice, we just had to find a little tense here, a little tense there. David did an amazing job putting it together in qualifying. And yeah, I mean, congratulations to everybody from Rebellion. They did a great job.
And obviously, David, everyone's looking at the weather, the conditions and tyres, and you guys were on inters throughout. The same set, was it?
The same set, and I thought they were crazy when I went out. I thought I was struggling in free practice when it was half the amount of water, and now double the amount of water, and I thought, no way. But it just worked, and the car was just amazing. You could just dance it on the limit, so forgiving, so easy to drive, quick. So it's just amazing. I'm really happy to, after 5 years in WEC, finally get my first pole in LMP2. Really happy for the team. Really good result all around. So.
And 7/10 quicker than your teammates.
That is pretty amazing, isn't it? Not just 7/10 quicker than the teammates, but 7/10 quicker than the rest of the field. It was really good. I knew it was a great lap when I saw it come up on the dash, and I thought the last lap was good, and I went 8/10 quicker, and okay, this is going to be good.
Well done. See you tomorrow.
Well, like so many of these gentlemen drivers, Heinemeier Hansen really works hard on his racing, and it's showing. This year has been, without doubt, a standout for him, and they will start on LMP2 pole position. Qualifying starting on a wet Fuji speedway a little earlier to try and avoid heavy rain, but the cooler conditions and the lack of rain through the lunchtime period meant that there was a lot of cloud around. We were in fact in the clouds as qualifying got underway. In the GTE Pro class, looked like a battle between Aston Martin and Porsche, but in the end it was the Clearwater Racing Ferrari. They'd been fastest with Matt Griffin at the wheel, and then when Wensung Mok went out, he also put in a sparkling lap to claim pole position. A delighted Clearwater Racing team on top of the AM pile, slithering around in the 66 Ford, last year's Pro Class pole sitter. Olivier Platt dancing on the limit but unable to close down their teammates. They were third, the 67 Ford in second place, and with Porsche the dominant in the wet, Fred Macavici and Richard Leitz claiming the GTE Pro Class pole. A hurry-up offense to try and beat the rain, sending the prototype cars out hot on the heels in the end of the session for the GTs, but visibility almost negligible. Dead Reckoning and the Compass were your best assets here. Intermediate tyres were just about survivable early on in the LMP2 class, but then it went to full wet. A good run from the 38 Jackie Chan DC racing car got it into the hunt, but in the end, Rebellion had everything locked up. The 31 car went second fastest, but Nelson Piquet, David Heinemeier, Hansen doing the job in 13 to take LMP2 pole. Toyota's Sebastian Buemi frustrated the end of his fastest lap as he shot for pole, catching traffic. He'd end up third, despite the best efforts of Andre Lotterer, the #1 Porsche, in second place. 71 thousandths of a second behind the championship leaders, as Brendon Hartley and Earl Bamber take pole in Japan. And the irony that it was far clearer at lunchtime, it is now far clearer again than during qualifying. The weather is playing tricks with us here. We're used to this in Spa, and just occasionally it happens in Fuji as well. Hopefully tomorrow's 6-hour race will get underway at the scheduled 11 AM start time. Till then, from Louise and Alan and me, it's goodbye.